We're all taught the same thing growing up, right? Honesty is the best policy. Be direct. But what if I told you that the people who really run the world, the ones who shape opinions and close deals, operate on a completely different set of rules? Well, today we're diving into the powerful and, let's be honest, sometimes dangerous art of influence through a Machiavellian lens. We're talking about reverse psychology.
Machiavelli, he just got it. He understood this fundamental truth that so many of us forget. The human spirit, it doesn't run on logic. No, it runs on resistance. It runs on this deep, primal need we all have for autonomy. Just tell someone they can't have something, and you can bet they will burn the world down just to get their hands on it. So that's a big question, isn't it? If we know this, why do we keep doing it? We ask for the sale, we demand respect, we beg for affection. And what happens? More often than not, it completely backfires. Because a direct request, it's not a conversation. It's a challenge to the ego. And the ego's first gut instinct is always to push back, to say no, just to prove it still has a choice. Yeah, the real masters of influence, the top negotiators, the strategists, the true persuaders, they don't chase after what they want. They don't ask. They engineer a reality where you give them exactly what they want, and you walk away thinking it was your own brilliant idea. This isn't about learning a few parlor tricks. It's about finally seeing the strings of human will. And trust me, once you see them, you can never go back to being a puppet. All right, so let's start with the fundamentals. This first section is all about what I call the resistance paradox. We're going to cover two core principles designed to just elegantly bypass that primitive wall of resistance that shoots up the moment anyone feels even a little bit pressured. It's wild, but people will literally reject a perfectly good idea simply because it wasn't their idea. See, the amateur commands, but the master offers curated options. You never force the path. You just build two roads that both lead where you want to go and let them choose which one to walk down. And this just lays it out perfectly. On the left, you get an instant no. You get resistance. But on the right, you hand them the crown. You make them the decision maker. Their ego is soothed, and they willingly, happily even, choose the path you paved for them, feeling completely in control the entire time. It's the difference between being a dictator and being an architect. Psychologists have a fancy name for this, reactance theory. It basically means that when our freedom to choose is threatened, we feel this gut-level urge to get it back. There is simply no magnet on Earth more powerful than a do not enter sign. So if you want someone to become obsessed with an idea, don't try to sell it to them. Forbid it. And this is where the entire script just flips on its head. The moment you suggest someone can't have you or shouldn't do something, their ego just screams, "Oh yeah, watch me." They will work 10 times harder to prove themselves to you than they ever would if you had just asked for their attention. Suddenly, you're not the seller anymore. You've become the prize. Okay, now let's move into some more subtle territory. The next set of laws, they're not about what you do, but about the strategic use of inaction. We're talking about the art of misdirection. Think back to high school physics. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. It's the same with people. If you push, they're going to push back even harder. So just stop pushing. When someone attacks your idea, don't defend it. Agree with them. You could even amplify their point. Say, "You know what, you're right, my plan is risky." The moment you take away the wall they're pushing against, they lose their balance. And suddenly, they find themselves arguing your side just to get back on solid ground. I mean, just think about it. Everyone is constantly broadcasting, explaining, justifying themselves. Silence has become the ultimate signal of power. When you ask a question and you know you're only getting a half-truth, don't say a word. Just wait. That silence becomes heavy, and their mind starts to panic. It assumes you know something they don't, and to relieve that awful pressure, they will talk. Oh, they will talk. They will reveal everything. See? That little beat of nothing, that tension, it becomes almost unbearable, and people will spill the truth. They'll even offer concessions they never ever intended to, all just to break the spell of your quiet confidence. Okay, so now we move from the subtle to the surgical. We're about to get into a rapid-fire succession of laws that target the ego directly. And this is where the game becomes much more personal and, if we're being honest, a whole lot more dangerous. Here's a secret about people. Everyone is the hero of their own movie. They aren't really looking at you. They're looking for a reflection of themselves. So stop trying to convince them with your logic. It's useless. Instead, become a mirror for their ideal self, the person they secretly wish they were. Treat them as if they are noble, or brilliant, or incredibly daring. So here's the crucial part. By labeling them with a positive trait, you trap them. They now have to live up to that label to protect their ego. You've basically boxed them in with their own vanity. And you know what? They will become completely addicted to the reflection of themselves that you provide.
This is the nuclear option. When you really need someone to do something difficult, don't you dare offer them rewards. Instead, you challenge their capability. This is a direct shot at their competence, at their status, and the ego simply cannot let that stand. Now, the key here is subtlety. If you're too aggressive, it just comes off as an insult. But if you frame it as a concern, almost like you're trying to protect them from failure, oh, it is devastating. They will move mountains and destroy themselves to prove they don't need your protection, taking on any burden you can imagine just to restore their sense of superiority. So, we've climbed the ladder of influence, from simple tactics all the way to weaponizing the ego. Now, we actually skipped a few laws along the way to get to the final and by far the most potent principle of them all. Because this right here, this is the core idea that holds everything else up. It's the basic law of supply and demand, but applied to the human soul. If you feel like you're being taken for granted, do not argue. Just disappear. Pull back your energy. Take a little longer to reply to that text. Create a void where your attention and validation used to be. I guarantee you, this sudden withdrawal will trigger a primal panic, and they will chase. And this right here, this is probably the most critical distinction of all. Withdrawing with anger just shows you still care. It's a tantrum, a plea for attention. But withdrawing with indifference, that signals that you are perfectly fine without them, that you are secure and have other options. And that, my friends, is the only signal that commands true, lasting respect. And so we arrive at the great paradox of it all. This desperate need to control a situation, it comes from a place of fear. Fear of being abandoned, fear of being insignificant. You want to use these laws like a shield, but the hard truth is they only work if you're already bulletproof. When you think about it, the person who is genuinely detached naturally does all of these things without even trying. They create scarcity just by having their own life. They seem mysterious because they don't need constant validation. So the ultimate technique isn't just imitating a powerful mindset, it's about actually cultivating that mindset within yourself. You know, most people are pawns. They're just moving blindly, reacting to whatever squares right in front of them. Having this knowledge, it gives you a choice. You can finally see the board for what it really is and decide, maybe for the first time, how you actually want to play the game. The only question left is, what will you choose?
Okay, let's kick things off with a quote from Machiavelli that is, well, it's pretty counterintuitive. It flips our whole modern idea of power right on its head. I mean, we're all taught to project strength, to look competent, right? But what if the exact opposite were true?
What if the most effective way to actually gain control is to make it seem like you have none at all? Now, hold on. This isn't about being weak. Not at all. It's about weaponizing the perception of weakness. So let's dive in and see how this actually works.
So this first phase of advanced influence, it's not about being aggressive or showing off how powerful you are. Nope, it's what we're calling the player's gambit. It's this subtle, really powerful art of using strategic vulnerability to completely disarm the people around you. Let's check out the first law in this gambit.
And that brings us right to Law 8, the false weakness. I mean, just think about it for a second. When you come across as super sharp, totally perfect, what do people do? They immediately put their guards up, right? They see you as a competitor. But the moment you seem a little flawed, maybe a bit confused, or even like you need help, they relax. All those shields just come right down. And this is where it gets really clever. This tactic literally turns someone's ego into your greatest source of intelligence. Just by saying something simple like, you know, I'm not sure I get it. Could you explain that again? You're basically inviting them to show off. And in that rush to feel superior, they'll often tell you everything. Their plans, their motives, they'll reveal their entire hand.
Okay, next up we have the art of incompetence. Now this is a much more tactical way of using weakness. It's not really about gathering intel anymore. This is all about protecting your most valuable, non-renewable resource, your time. And the source material here is, well, it's brutally honest. It basically says if you do something too well, your punishment is you get to do more of it. You know how it is, right? You fix the office printer that one time and suddenly you're the IT support forever? Law 12, well, that's your way out. Now, let's be super clear. This is not about being lazy, okay? It's about strategic filtering. It's a conscious choice to focus your skills where they're actually going to have the most impact, instead of trying to be the hero who catches every single falling plate.
And this quote just illustrates the disruptive power of this law so brilliantly. I mean, sometimes the only way people will recognize your value is when they have to experience what happens when you're not there. Just stepping back and letting things happen naturally, well, that sends a much clearer message than complaining ever could.
All right, so now we're going to escalate things. Our next section is architect of their desire. We're shifting gears here, moving away from defensive moves and into proactively shaping what other people want, what they choose. This is where you actually become the architect of their reality.
Forget all that hollow cheerleading, that toxic positivity stuff. This is Law 9. So when someone is doubting themselves, just saying, oh yes, you can do it, it usually just falls flat. Instead, try agreeing with them. Say something like, you're right, this is going to be incredibly hard. Most people would probably quit. See? You instantly validate their fear, you build rapport, and then you reframe the entire challenge.
And this metaphor is just so powerful because it gets right to the core of human motivation. Think about it. By framing a task as nearly impossible, you make failure the expected outcome. But success? Oh, success becomes heroic. You're triggering their inner fighter, that deep desire for a real, meaningful struggle, not some easy little win. This right here, this is Law 11, the contrast principle, in action. Our brains just can't evaluate things in a vacuum. So by first hitting them with a big, totally unreasonable request, one you know they'll reject, the second, smaller request doesn't feel like a demand anymore. It feels like a totally reasonable concession. It's a relief, and the best part? They walk away feeling like they won the negotiation. Okay, now for Law 10. This is the art of truly invisible influence. It's not about ordering someone to a conclusion. Not at all. It's about patiently leading them there, bit by bit, until they believe it was their own brilliant idea the whole time.
The key here, the most crucial point, is that control is worth so much more than credit. For instance, you could just casually say something like, it's strange how our competitors are cutting costs, and then just let that idea hang in the air. A day or two later, when your boss suddenly suggests a new budget strategy, you just praise their foresight. You get the outcome you wanted, and they get all the credit. It's a win-win, kind of.
All right, let's move on to our next section, the power of scarcity. Now, this might just be the most potent external tactic of all. We're taking the basic economic law of supply and demand, and we're applying it directly to the human soul. You know, you can be the most intelligent, charming, and capable person in the room, but if you're always there, your presence just becomes background noise. Law 13 argues that when you start to feel taken for granted, complaining is a sign of weakness. Disappearing? Now that's an assertion of power. You just pull back a little, cancel a plan, create a void where you used to be.
And this distinction right here, it is everything. Withdrawing with anger is just a tantrum. It screams neediness. But withdrawing with the kind of calm indifference, that's a power move. It sends a clear signal that you are perfectly fine without them. And that quiet self-sufficiency, it triggers this primal panic in people, forcing them to completely reevaluate your worth, and suddenly they're chasing you.
But you know, after going through all of these potent external tactics, we finally arrive at the central secret of real power. And it's a bit of a paradox.
So for our final section, we have the ultimate reversal. And this is where we turn the entire framework inward. The argument here is that the need to control other people actually comes from a lack of control over yourself, usually a deep-seated fear of abandonment or just being insignificant. And here's the catch, the big one. These laws, they only really work when you don't need them to work. Why? Well, because if you're using them as some desperate trick to get a specific outcome, people can smell it. They can sense that neediness a mile away. And eventually, that mask is gonna slip. Look, all these techniques we've talked about, they're really just an imitation of a truly powerful mindset. The real goal isn't to master the tricks. It's to actually embody the mindset of genuine security. It's about building a life that's so rich, with a purpose so clear, that any single outcome, good or bad, it just doesn't define you. And that, right there, is the final profound takeaway. The person who is truly detached, who is genuinely secure, they apply these laws naturally, without even thinking about it. So the ultimate reverse psychology, it's the one you play on yourself. It's about building a foundation so strong that you don't even need to manipulate the world anymore because you've already mastered your own.